Hi, I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota, and I want to invite you to my next community event. It's going to be held on Thursday, July 21st at 12:30 Eastern Time. And we're going to be having a conversation on how to manage stress that's coming from the recent inflation and potential recession. This will not be financial tips. This will be a conversation about stress management and how to deal with these difficult times. This is going to be all about self-care, and it's going to be a conversation among the participants and myself. It's not a lecture. It's not me sitting there talking. It's really a conversation where everyone gets to participate and give input and share and see where everyone else is. And then, of course, there will be some helpful tips and, good ideas that everyone will share about stress management in these difficult times. So please join me on Thursday, July 21st at 12:30 Eastern Time for our conversation on managing the stressful times with these economic downturns. Hi, I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota, and today I want to talk about the stress that's coming from all the recent financial changes, including increasing rates of inflation and a potential new recession. And before I begin, I wanted to just define the terms so everyone's on the same page. And I've got a little handout I'm going to read. So, first of all, inflation is the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time, and it's typically a broad measure such as the overall increase in prices or the increase in the cost of living in a country. So when we look at the increasing prices of gasoline or the increasing prices of groceries, that's a clear indication that we have entered into higher rates of inflation. And apparently the rates are going up and might end up at even 10%, which is going to be a record-breaking rate since we haven't even gotten to 8% since 40 years ago. And now I want to define recession. So recession is a business cycle contraction where there is a general decline in economic activity, and it generally occurs when there's a widespread drop in spending, which makes sense in terms of costs being higher, so people are going to be spending less. Plus, there are more people out of the workplace, and that's also going to cause less spending. And this could be triggered by financial crises, and for sure there's been a financial crisis partly because of COVID and partly because of the war in the Ukraine. And so when you have a recession, it's called a significant decline in economic activity, and that will cause real effects on income, employment, production, and sales of products. And so it's going to be negative economic growth in at least 2 quarters of the year. So when we have a recession, governments tend to respond to this by trying to increase money supply or increase government spending or decrease taxation. But in the meantime, interest rates have gone up. And so for people who've borrowed money or people who've bought homes, they're going to be paying more. So these are stressful things that are happening, inflation and the potential recession. And when we have these things on top of all the other stresses we've been experiencing lately, it can lead us to what's called a breaking point. There's that expression, the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, obviously, inflation and recession are more than just a straw. They're like a whole bale of hay. And when we're dealing with such a stress, we really have to take more care of our emotional well-being. Now, of course, I'm not a financial analyst or a financial advisor, so I cannot advise about the kinds of spending habits or saving habits you need to adopt in this kind of situation. That is best saved for people who are experts in those fields. But what I can say is that when we do have an added source of stress, we definitely need to be more cognizant of our own emotional stress and well-being and take the measures necessary to protect ourselves from decompensating. And by decompensating, I mean having some type of emotional breakdown where we can no longer function optimally. For example, when we become so irritable that we're losing our temper and snapping at our loved ones or at our colleagues, or when we're unable to focus or concentrate on our work and we're making mistakes and potentially getting into trouble or costing our company money or having other kinds of errors that could be very negative. Another way we could have a breakdown manifested could be in chronic insomnia or eating patterns that are changed or difficulties with our energy and motivation. Also, when we become socially withdrawn and we don't want to spend time with our loved ones or even speak to people, and our partner is wondering what's going on, our children can't reach through to us, our friends, our family members are trying to, get through, and nobody's able to because we have withdrawn so much due to stress. So these are all signs of a breakdown, and we can have a breakdown when there is cumulative and chronic stress. So think about the last few years. We've had COVID lasting for more than 2 years, and that's been an enormous stress. And that's been a stress on a financial level, on an emotional level, on a physical level, and also on a level in terms of loss. There's been so much loss during that period of time, and that alone is very stressful. Plus, the isolation has been tremendously stressful because when we are stressed, we like to reach out to loved ones. That's one of our great coping strategies for support. And when we have been isolated, of course, those options were limited. So our natural ability to cope has been curtailed because of all the isolation due to COVID. So all of those things could cause cumulative and chronic stress. And then since COVID, we've had a lot of government polarization where, there's one side that's vehemently on the side of vaccinations, one side that's vehemently against vaccinations, one side that's vehemently pro-mask, one side that's vehemently against it, one side that's vehemently pro the truckers convoy, one side that thinks of it as an occupation. And so we have such polarization, which also causes stress because the polarization can even occur within families or within groups of friends, and it can really cause a lot of hardship and heartache. And so here we are now with all of that, and now there's inflation. And when people go to the gas tank and are trying to fill up a car, especially if they're working in their cars, there's such a hardship. It's such a stress because they're trying to figure out how to pay the bills. So what has to fall by the wayside? Is it their children's summer camp? Is it some other important thing that otherwise they would have been able to spend their money on? And so people are really stretched thin, and it's causing enormous stress. And then the thoughts of a recession where it's going to be harder to find a job, it's going to be harder to buy products. Again, this is very, very difficult. And so these are times when we could really fall apart if we're not careful, if we're not conscious and really proactive about our emotional well-being and our self-care. So we need to really focus right now on self-care more than ever before, even during COVID when we had to, now even more so because post-COVID, the stress has only gone up. So we need to take care and make sure that we get good sleep, we get as much exercise as we can, and there's lots of exercise that we can do that doesn't cost any money, like going on a bike if you have a bike already, or just going for a walk or a jog. Those are great things to do for our emotional well-being because they help get those endorphins going and they help reduce stress. They drop our cortisol levels, which are stress hormones. So that's great for decreasing and reducing stress. And then also making sure we have proper nutrition. We do talk to our loved ones and we get that emotional support that's so needed. We don't self-isolate. And we try to get some meditation time in or some just simple contemplation, whether it's going to whatever religious services that we participate in or just meditating on our own or outdoors even, that's even better. And spending time in nature is a great way to decompress and take care of our emotional well-being because nature is very refreshing and rejuvenating. So now more than ever, we need to tune in and take care of ourselves. We also need to notice any signs of stress. So like I said, even pre-breakdown, we can start noticing problems with our sleep. We can start noticing that we're more frustrated easily, that our concentration and focus are off, that our motivation and energy are not what they used to be, and that we're starting to withdraw from people. So if we're noticing any of these signs or symptoms, we need to make sure to do the things that will help us feel better. And if on our own it's not working, then it's important to seek professional help, whether a coach, a counselor, or a therapist, so that we can get back on track. And again, if we need financial advice, we need to talk to the people who are experts in that field. But in terms of our emotional well-being, we need to tune in, make sure that we are okay, keep taking our emotional temperature, and keep focusing on good, simple self-care that will get us through these very stressful times. I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota. Please stay tuned for more content on all my platforms.